difference there? If you can give us an idea of magnitudes along the way.
There is only one point in the entire cycle where the level of habit drops to zero. Effectively, then novelty becomes infinite. And that point occurs on this solstice date in 2012. Now, it's very interesting. There are some people on the net called Singularis, and they're hard-headed engineering types, and they take things like rate of energy release, rate of data storage, this sort of thing, and draw all their curves out, and they conclude that sometime between 2008 and 2020, we produce infinite amounts of energy, we pack infinite amounts of data into infinitely small spaces. In other words, this same sort of thing where, because of the acceleration built into the unfolding of this novelty process, we're going to cross more territory between here and 2012 than we've crossed between the Big Bang and getting to here.
God, that's an incredible thought.
It kind of explains what's happening, you know, that it isn't the old-style religion, that it isn't the sterile, steady state of science either. It's that the universe is actually involved in some kind of process of self-metamorphosis, and human beings indicate that we have crossed some boundary into a new era, a new epoch of ever greater acceleration into this process of self-revelation. I mean, this is what religions are raving about. This is what every prophet on the street corner is trying to articulate. And
no question.
I think it's real. I think we're getting a lot of static because people can only deal with it through images that they know. You know, Marshall McLuhan once said we drive into the future using only our rear view mirror. And that's sort of what it is. But I call this thing the transcendental object at the end of time. And I think, you know, in a sense, religion, Christian revelation, it will all be fulfilled in a way none of us ever suspected, because nature has this appetite for novelty and acceleration into novelty.
And so then again I ask, at this moment that we speak of, 2012,
right?
What do you actually think will occur?
Well, I've thought about this a good deal, and they're hard and soft scenarios, but I've noticed that what the time wave seems most coherently able to track is technology. Mm-hmm. Somehow technology is very important. It's the transformation of the human relationship to the world through tools. And so what I'm thinking would fulfill this entire scenario without requiring God Almighty to put in an appearance is time travel. I think that we are moving toward, you know, if you look at biology over huge scales of time, hundreds of millions of years, it is a kind of conquest of dimensionality.
All right, let's consider that. Somebody recently said, and I have been considering since I heard it, a very simple question. If time travel is possible, then where are the time travelers?
Well, when I asked that question to my sources, they said, you can only travel as far back into the past as the moment of the invention of the first time machine, because before that, there were no time machines.
But let me think about that. Does that make sense? You could only travel back to the moment of the invention of the time machine, because prior to that, there was no capability.
It's like trying to drive where there are no roads.
Yeah.
It also means when you invent the first time machine, instantly time machines will appear by the tens of thousands, having come back through time to see the first flight into time.
That's incredible. That's a whole new line of thought for me about about that question, and it might make sense. It might make sense. And your analogy is that you cannot drive, in essence,
where there are no roads.
Where there are no roads. Well, of course, you nearly do that when you go home from the broadcast here, but...
And you haven't even been up to see me. You're psychic. We're very proud of our bad roads.
I understand. It keeps the riffraff away, I suppose.
It certainly does. Actually, it doesn't keep the riffraff away, but it keeps everybody else away.
How long, Terence, have you been residing on the side of the volcano there?
Well, continuously for about 3.5 years. I've had land out here for about, since 77.
Since 77, and before that?
I grew up in western Colorado, and I had my children and my marriage and all that in California, and lived 35 years in Northern California.
You knew Timothy Leary, yes?
I knew him. We appeared in public, mostly in Europe, together a few times, and he certainly was a huge influence on me. I only came to know him in the past 7 or 8 years, but as a kid growing up in the 60s, he was an enormous influence on me.
You are now being called by many his heir apparent, his heir now, I guess.
Well, I think not by many, but I was called it by him. Everybody else kept their mouth shut. Well, I have my method. I'm very interested in the psychedelic experience. I was raised Catholic, and what I kept of that was an enormous thirst for the paranormal, the miraculous,
yes,
supernatural.
Yes.
And I went to India, and I made the rounds of the gurus and the geishas, and I didn't find what I was looking for. But when I went to South America, to the jungles down there, I discovered that LSD was only the tip of the psychedelic iceberg, and what I had taken to be modern science and modern chemistry was actually a tradition of shamanism and religious use of psychedelic plants that was thousands and thousands of years old. And that fascinated me because it worked for me. Most people who seek the mystery with
listen, let us pick this up after the top of the hour. Now, listen to me carefully. You've got about a 10-minute break here, at least, and you're not going to hear anything. Don't let it bother you. Just put the phone down, grab a cup of coffee or something or another, and we'll be back to you, okay?
All right.
Stay right there. This is CBC.
This hour on the best of Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. For 97, it's Art and his guest, the late Terence McKenna. And now, enjoy this encore presentation of Coast to Coast AM with...
The lines are absolutely alive, and everybody out there, just relax for a little while. I have some advice for you. My guest is a very, very unusual person whose name is Terence McKenna. In order to properly appreciate what you're about to hear, if you're just joining us in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and so forth, you're going to have to pretty much put down whatever you're doing. I'll turn the radio up a little bit and listen very carefully, because it makes a lot of sense, but you've got to listen carefully. Terence McKenna, we'll find out more about him in a moment, lives on the side of an active volcano in Hawaii. An interesting place to choose to live by itself, and an interesting man indeed. So more of Terence McKenna coming up. Art, have you heard about Terence McKenna's theory called time wave zero? He suggests that as we get closer to time wave zero, we are experiencing tachyon radiation from it. Evidently, the impending event is so colossal that it will emit such intense radiation that some of it takes the form of faster than light speed tachyon particles or waves, which